Hello, this is Christy Schwager from the Moose Jaw Museum and Art Gallery. I am the Education Coordinator, and today in our Community Stories Tuesday episode, we're looking at Keepsakes of Conflict, Trench Art, and Other Canadian War-Related Craft. This exhibition was put together and toured across Canada by the Moose Jaw Museum and Art Gallery and has now completed. So there are other ways if this is something that interests you in engaging with this exhibition virtually. We have just launched a virtual stories site with the Canadian Virtual Museums, and we are excited to share that with you. There are other ways to engage by looking at our website. We have a dedicated area for the Keepsakes of Conflict portion. We also have a publication in both English and in French available for people to purchase if they wish. And the Art Gallery of Swift Current put together a video of the last stop of the tour. So there are many different ways to engage. Today, in education, we are going to go through with you the guide that was put together and is also on our website for you to have a closer look at. We are going to go through some of the activities that might interest you at home. And available materials are there as well. I just went through some of the things I had at home, and I'd like to share some of the activities. So when we look at this exhibition, the word trench art jumps out. And trench art, if you don't know what that is, it can be any decorative item made by soldiers, prisoners of war, or civilians where the manufacturer is directly linked to armed conflict or consequences. So this can be from past World War I, World War II, the Boer War, and we even had some pieces from the Afghan and the other more recent wars. So in the guide, we have 3 goals that we want to achieve with our students who are usually school age, but we're not limiting that to school age kids. Maybe somebody who's interested in learning more about it. We wanted to introduce our students to conflict craft, which is trench art. We wanted to help students understand some of the experiences of Canadians at war. And also we wanted to help students apply their knowledge to develop their own idea and personal meaning of expression. So in the guide itself, we have a table of contents that explains some of the ideas that were put together for the exhibition. The curator's statement, which at the time that this was created was guest curator Heather Smith. A number of vocabulary words, such as trench art, are shown in this section. And then the actual tour activities. So if you had an opportunity, or if you go into a museum, there are some engaging ways to take students on a tour, looking at a sheet that learn how to look at artifacts and kind of engage with them. So there's a section there. The most important part for me after the tour is the hands-on component. And this is very much highlighted in this section that we're going to talk about today. And there are different themes in the exhibit. So one of the themes is looking at passing time, convalescence, and confinement. This is during a time when a soldier is maybe injured or in a hospital setting, and oftentimes bedridden, or they're not able to get around because of some of their injuries. So this is where hands become really important to do handcraft, things like quilting or needlework or knitting, and this is one of the sections that I found really intriguing when I looked at some of the pieces in the exhibition. One piece I really remember was a knitted sweater, and the knitted sweater was made by recycling other yarn from other pieces that maybe got worn out. So, for instance, socks that couldn't be darned anymore, or old clothing pieces that needed a new life. So that's one piece that I remember seeing from the exhibition that really stood out. The next section that we don't really talk about much, but is an important factor, was the prisoners of war. And prisoners of war were in camps, and their resources were extremely limited, so they used whatever they had. In this activity that we have included is a tin can art project. So using a coffee can and putting paper in it, and one prisoner of war used an old golf ball and putting paint on the golf ball and then putting it inside of the tin can to create a painting. So that's the activity that we have featured. The next is modification of kits or equipment. So things like mugs or lighters or even the canvas bag themselves. So in our little activity, we've included, I just found this around the house, is an old ceramic mug that is plain. And then we use Sharpie markers, whatever you have available. Has to be something that's a little bit more permanent. And then paper. So what you want to do is on the piece of paper, take a pencil and draw something that symbolizes yourself. So oftentimes soldier would put something that was significant to them, and even when you're in a troop, you have certain mascots that you might want to include. So for me, flowers, gardening is coming up, so I wanted to include that in my piece. So once you have a drawing of that, you simply take the Sharpie and draw it onto the ceramic cup. Thing to know, if you're not happy with the pattern, you can always use nail polish remover to take it off. But our goal is once you have your pattern on here, you can place it in the oven and it actually kind of burns on, and you'll have a personalized mug that is modified. The next thing that we want to look at are gifts for home. So in some cases, the soldiers would use, and how many people here have old socks that they only have one of? Well, one of the artifacts in the exhibit is a soldier that made Izzy dolls. And Izzy dolls are something that the soldier gave to children that were in conflict. And what you do with the sock is put a little bit of cushion in here, and you need some strings to kind of tie up a head and different parts of the body, and create a little doll out of an old sock. So that is another activity that you can do that relates to a soldier by the name of Mark Roberts, or Mark Robert Isfelt, who was killed in Croatia. He was carrying on peacekeeping duties and was killed in a mine area. But fortunately for the Izzy dolls, they are still being made by military and people interested in helping kids in conflicted areas to give them out to them and in his honor. So the other activity that I would like to share with you today is tin can art and punching. There's a lot of the pieces in the exhibition were either shells or bomb pieces. A lot of metal was used during different conflicts during different time frames. And what we're going to use for that part is we're going to use tin that comes a little bit thicker at the dollar store. The containers that you get, I've cut it up into a section. Then I've taped it onto a wooden or a box, a cardboard box. I have another piece of paper that I've drawn my pattern on, and I'm just going to place that on top of my tin. And once I put a little bit of tape on here to hold my pattern in place, I'm going to use a knitting needle. And what you're going to do is you're going to press pretty hard on here, just hard enough that you will get a pattern on the tin. Don't worry if you make a mistake. This is just an outline so that you have the pattern on here. Now you want to probably peek a little bit to make sure that you have it on here before you actually take this off. And wonderful, have a nice pattern on here. Our next goal is to take the end of our knitting needle and press on here. So the whole idea is when you look at the trench art or war-related craft, there's a number of cases of things that are carved into. There are things that are added, applied, and in this case, we're pressing into the surface of something that will leave an impression. Now the tin that you use has to be a little bit heavier to do this. And I've cut the edges off so that it lays flat on here on the surface. And what you can do with this tin pattern is you can put a beautiful background on it, put it in a frame, and you have a wonderful design of something that represents yourself. So this is Christy Schwager from the Moose Jaw Museum and Art Gallery, and today I shared with you some of the activities, educational activities that go along with the Keepsakes of Conflict trench art and other Canadian war-related craft. I hope you enjoy this video today and like us, and look forward to sharing more ideas with you as we are at home trying to be creative.